Hi mga kanami. Maayong hapon sa tanan mga kanami. It's session time again. Sa kaniyang panglungsod ng City of Coronadal. And maya po, in just few minutes, we're going to start our sessions, Tuesday session here at our tawag dito, session hall. So ito yung mga magiging kasama natin, mga councilors natin, lahat present yan, walang absent. Yan, masisipag natin yung mga councilors. So in a while, we are going to start. At ngayong hapon, siyempre marami tayong pag-uusapan at kailangan sumabay kayo sa aming pulong-pulong, sa aming session. At nang malaman nyo naman kung anong nangyayari sa ating syudad. Lalo-lalo na kung ano pa ang mga resolusyon, mga committee report, at siyempre mga ordinansa na aming papatpatin. Okay, so mga kanami, may hapon sa inyo datanan. Okay, watch out for our session as we are going to start. Now, shout out sa lahat pala na nanonood dyan, ha? Ayos na kamudra. Okay. Sige. My dear esteemed colleagues, our session now is called to order. Our invocation is to be led by Councilor Jose Henry Aguirre.
Let us pray. Almighty and loving Father, Giver of life, I pray that as we gather into this session, kindly bless every one of us. Send upon this body your Holy Spirit to give us wisdom to tackle legislative matters laid before us. It is our hope that whatever decision we make together will be for the benefit of our constituents. In the face of this pandemic, we also pray, Father, that you heal those who are afflicted by it. Comfort those who lost their loved ones because of it, and protect those who are in the front lines, working hard to control its spread. This we pray in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Bayang magiliw, perlas na silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglaing minamahal, ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin niya't araw niyang kailan amay di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwal at pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mang-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Sa ko tabato, taglay ang isang dugo ng Pilipino. Iba't ibang tribong pinanggalingan, di hadlang sa pag-iyod ng matibay na mamamayan. Mula bundok matutong na nagsisilbing gabay, at ng mga lawa na siyang kinang buhay. Hanggang sa lupa lay ating kaunlaran, tayo na't harapin ang tagumpay. Sama-sama sa pagtaguyod ng bayan, atin abutin ang magandang kinabukasan. Lahat tayo'y magkaisa sa himig at sa diwa, para sa bayan sa Cotabato.
lungsod naming mahal. Kaakit-akit ang ganda mong taglay, mga lambak mo at kabundukan, sadyang sagana sa kayamanan. Iba't ibang lipi ang laing Pilipino, umanap ng kanduran at nagkatipon dito. Ang daming kapatiran, pagkakaisa, higit na pinagtibay sa lupang pinagpala. Tanyag sa kapayapaan, taglay mo ang karangalan. Huwaran ka sa pag-unlad, pag-asa ka naming lahat. Ikaw tanging lungsod na pinagpala ng may kapal, aming handog, lakas at buhay. Koronadal naming mahal. Sa kapayapaan, taglay niyo ang karangalan. Huwaran ka sa pag-unlad, pag-asa ka naming lahat. Ikaw ang tanging lungsod, pinagpala ng may kapal, aming handog, lakas at buhay. Koronadal naming mahal, aming handog, lakas at buhay. Koronadal naming mahal.
Madam Secretary, please do the roll call.
Honorable Peter D. Miguel.
Present.
Honorable Edwin Chervis. Honorable Jose Henry D. Aguirre.
Present.
Honorable Maylene May S. Bascon de Guzman. Present. Honorable Handel D. R. Camiliano Cubido. Present. Honorable Francis Ross S. Fideles.
Present.
Honorable Bernardo B. Inay.
Present.
Honorable Marie Antonina Hurtado. Honorable James M. Tagasca. Honorable Pichi Luella de Pupuy.
Present.
Honorable Annabel G. Tingoy. Present. Honorable Antonio S. Abing.
Present.
Honorable Gregorio O. Presda.
Present.
Honorable Clarice May P. Solomon. Present. Mr. Presiding Officer, 13 members of the Sangguniang present, including Presiding Officer, and 1 member is still out.
With the presence of the majority of the members of this august body, our session has quorum.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Honorable agrees.
thank you. In consideration of the Journal of Proceedings, I move to dispense the reading of the said Journal of Proceedings of the Sangguniang Panunsod held last May 12, 2020. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
In objection, there having none, the reading of the journal is hereby dispensed.
And copies were distributed, Mr. Chair. I hope we've gone over through the journal. I therefore move for the adoption of the said Journal of Proceedings.
In objection, there being none, our journal of proceedings is hereby adopted.
Under first reading and referrals, item 1, an ordinance granting financial assistance to recognize indigenous cultural communities, indigenous peoples, IPCs or IPs, in support of the celebration of annual Barangay Indigenous Peoples Day. Authors Honorable Antonio S. Abing and Honorable Edwin Chervis.
This item is referred to the Committee on Finance.
Under communications and information, item 1, from the city mayor, address the city vice mayor and honorable members of Sangguniang Panunsod, letter dated October 26, 2020, transmitting copies of Executive Order Number 89-D, Series of 2020, otherwise known as an order implementing granular lockdown and enhanced community quarantine in identified areas in the city of Coronadal, effective 24 of October 2020 until 7 of November 2020, due to the source of COVID-19 contagion per Perusal information.
This item is for information purposes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Brice.
Just a motion for reconsideration, Mr. Chair, on the ruling of the presiding officer on the first item, on the proposed ordinance granting financial assistance to indigenous cultural communities. I move for a reconsideration that instead of referring it to the Committee on Finance, I hope that the presiding officer would refer it to the Committee on Indigenous Affairs, Mr. Chair, because the Committee on Finance is in the middle of the budget hearing already. It may be very difficult for the committee to gather, Mr. Chair, and discuss other matters. For efficiency, Mr. Chair, I so move.
Any objection? There having none, that motion is approved. This item now is referred instead to Finance Committee, but to the Indigenous Committee, Indigenous Affairs Committee.
Under committee reports, item 1, Committee on Finance, Budget and Appropriation and Ways and Means.
So at this point, let us hear the report of Honorable Brice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our presiding officer, Honorable Peter B. Miguel, members of the Sangguniang Palunsod, good afternoon. This is actually the second consideration of the report of the Committee on Finance, Budget, Appropriation, and Ways and Means. The subject of this report is the request from the Executive Department through City Treasurer, Mr. Marlon Gumbao, CPA, and the City Administrator, Attorney Reneville Milla, regarding the closure of dormant accounts of the city maintained with Land Bank of the Philippines to be transferred in the current account trust fund of the city. Last session, Mr. Chair, on the record, I was able to read the report already, and the same copy is the subject actually of this report. I therefore move to dispense the reading of the full text of this committee report.
Any second to the motion? It's seconded. Any objection? There having none, the reading of full text is hereby dispensed.
I therefore move, Mr. Chair, for the adoption of the said committee report.
Any objection? Clarification? At this point, maybe the chair would like to be clarified on the, if I remember it right, the question of this 7 million LBP DAS PCF fund.
Yes.
It's a huge amount. What is the reason why there's a savings in this?
Mr. Chair, so that we could discuss the matter, I would answer the question during the second reading stage.
Okay. We'll reserve that on second reading. Okay, any objection? There having none, motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the attached resolution, Mr. Chair, be calendared for second reading under unassigned business in today's session.
Any objection? There having none, this is calendared now to second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Item 2, Committee on Human Rights, Justice and Legal Matters.
Let us hear the report of Honorable Richie Luella Owe.
To our presiding officer, Vice Mayor Peter Miguel, members of the August body, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This is a committee report from the Committee on Human Rights, Justice and Legal Matters pertaining to a request for a resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign a memorandum of agreement with the National Library of the Philippines for the advancement of the city library. Findings and observation. A letter is received with the Sangguniang Palunsod dated September 28, 2020, requesting for a resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign a memorandum of agreement with the National Library of the Philippines for the advancement of city library. Number 2, Republic Act 7743, entitled An Act providing for the establishment of congressional, city, and municipal libraries and barangay reading centers throughout the Philippines, appropriating the necessary funds thereof and for other purposes. Number 3, the National Library of the Philippines will provide initial books and other book materials with a total worth value of 300 pesos for the advancement of the city library. Number 4, the city government of Coronadal, in partnership with the National Library of the Philippines, aims to elevate the literacy level of the constituents of Coronadal and recognize the vital role of knowledge and information in nation building and providing opportunities for their wholesome development. Number 5, a memorandum of agreement is needed to govern the rights and obligations of the parties. Recommendation, the committee recommends for a resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign the memorandum of agreement with the National Library of the Philippines for the advancement of the city library. Number 2, the committee recommends that the same should be taken for second and final reading in today's regular session. And finally, the committee recommends for the adoption of the recommendation mentioned in this committee report. I so move. Mr. Chair.
Any objection? There being none, this committee report is hereby adopted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Honorable Nagasca.
I concur with the committee report.
The committee report is concurred by Honorable James Nagasca.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Soroman.
I concur with the committee report of Mr. Chair.
Honorable Soroman concurred with the committee report.
Under second reading, business of the day, item 1.1, an ordinance adopting the public-private partnership or PPO for the city of Barangay.
Let us hear Honorable Ivan Abris.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman, members of this august body. On joint sponsorship by the members of the Committee on Finance, I move to dispense the reading of the full text of the said ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Any second to the motion? Any objection? There being none, the reading of the full text is hereby dispensed.
And considering that we have given enough time actually for the members to look into the said proposed ordinance, Mr. Chair, and since we have conducted also an orientation as well as a sort of a committee hearing, Mr. Chair, with regards to this proposed ordinance last March and until now, we have actually ample of time to look into the matter. And on joint sponsorship by the members of the Committee on Finance, I move for the approval of an ordinance adopting the Code of Philippine Public-Private Partnership approach in the financing, construction, operation, and maintenance of local government infrastructure development projects and creating the City of Coronadal PPP Board, providing appropriation and incentives therefore and for other purposes, Mr. Chairman. I so move.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Ogoy.
I would just like to ask the proponent, if this PPP code this is pro forma, yung pro forma ba siya na, or this is specially tailor-made for the city of government of Coronadal?
We have actually, originally, this was endorsed to the Sangguniang Panlungsod by the Executive Department during the previous administration. And from what I know and from what we have gathered, the Executive Department and some of the members of this august body was able to attend actually the APPP orientation in Manila, where it was explained and the contingent from the city of Coronadal were briefed on the PPP mode of financing of government infrastructure development projects. And after such orientation in Metro Manila, the city government or through the executive department was able actually to draft its own version of a PPP code based from the template given to us by the PPP Center. So to answer the question of the Honorable Ugoy, well, basically this is an adoption of what is actually in the template of the PPP Center, but adjusted to suit the situation of the city of Coronadal.
Mr. Chair, under section 7, Letter C, we have here government undertakings. So we have here different methods, I believe, Mr. Chair, by which we can enter into a PPP with other entities. So it may mention here parang, tama ba Mr. Chair? Ito yung different methods of,
Yes.
Partnership we can have with different government agencies or private entities. We have here mentioned cost sharing, credit enhancement, direct government equity, direct government guarantee. I think we have here almost
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Six.
anim.
6 possibility of government undertaking which the city government may offer to a private proponent. It can be one of these undertakings or a combination of the 6 government undertakings.
We may mention about yung sa BOT, build and transfer, yun ba yun?
No,
Build, operate, and transfer.
that is already the kind of PPP contractual arrangement. Now, we have different contractual arrangement which we can enter into a private proponent. It could be, I think there are, in your copy, no, there are actually 11 mode of contractual arrangement with a private proponent. It can be either build, transfer, build, lease, and transfer, build, own and operate, build, operate, and transfer, etc., etc. There are actually 11 mode of contractual arrangement in which the government can enter into with a private proponent.
Mr. Chair, we just would like to ask the proponent, do you have any idea kung saan ba yung leaning ng city government na ever man talaga na enter into a contractual agreement?
That
By
would
which
be-
mode, sa tingin mo na may probability na mag-enter tayo? At least we have the perspective kung ano yung posible na.
Yes, as much as I would like to answer directly the question, Mr. Chair, but that is too early to discuss and too premature to say what is the mode of arrangement in which the city government can enter into with a private proponent. Because the real purpose of this ordinance is just to give actually a local setup of procedure for which the city government can entertain a public-private partnership arrangement. Now, this ordinance will only actually give us the process for which a PPP arrangement can begin, and what are the steps, and this ordinance will provide it. And to make sure that the arrangement will be an endeavor that we will enter into. Depende sa project, depende sa development na i-propose.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, this is the first time in case we enter into a PPP that the city government will have a contractual agreement under PPP mode, Mr. Chair.
Now, Mr. Chair, let me clarify. We are not yet entering
But in
into...
case this is after the approval of this will be our first time that
Yes,
we enter.
yes. This will be actually the first time or the only time that we could probably lay down the procedure for which the city government can proceed with the PPP arrangement. Now, but we are not yet talking of a specific project. And we will be waiting for the process to begin with, because it will have to start with the board determining what kind of developmental project will be prioritized in the city. And it will be posted so that private proponents will be aware of it and they can make offers.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I may proceed.
The reason why I am asking this one, because since this will be our first time, so ibig sabihin maging model na siya. So it will be the precedent, so dapat maayos talaga siya. And iniisip ko na dapat it should be comprehensive enough yung code natin na in case later on na magka-problema, there will be hindi tayo matagay sa you know, in a different light. So yun lang, Mr. Chair.
If may I
Mr. Chair, before...
Yes, Honorable Pingoy.
Yes, I would like also to ask, sa cost, I don't know, this is cost sharing, ano, sa definition, section 7, cost sharing. Can LGU obtain loan to finance the 50%? Pwede ba? Kay 50-50 man.
Well, that can be a possibility
Mahal
because
ka-
cost sharing is actually, as defined here, this refers to an agreement where the city government bears a portion of the capital expense. Now, how can an LGU provide for that capital expense? Well, it can be internally through our resources, available resources, either by our local revenue or ERA. If not, the LGU has also the capacity and has the leverage also to avail of financing. But that will really depend on the situation if the Sangguniang Panlungsod or the city government will enter into such an arrangement.
Just follow up.
You proceed, please
Mr.
proceed.
Chair.
You may proceed.
Yes, for the credit enhancement about the revenue guarantees or tax holiday, may mga limitations on this tax holiday.
Well, our limitation will be based on Republic Act 7160 on the local government code because as a city, as a component city, no, we are only limited to such taxing powers whereby the grant on holidays or exemption is also based from. We cannot exempt something which we do not actually impose. So our limitation will be also on our powers to grant or to charge whatever fees and charges, Mr. Chair.
Another one, Mr. Chair.
Just proceed.
Yes, the composition members, composition of the City of Coronadal Public-Private Partnership, chairperson, co-chairperson, and the members. Pwede ba, just in case, kung nakita sa PPP natin, can we add sa mga members? Can we, the Sangguniang can add or
That is part of the recommendation of the Committee on Finance. Because as we look into the other PPP code in the whole country, medyo nagkakaiba ang composition ng board. No? Some, marami ang sanggunian, ang member ng sanggunian, no? And there were also situations where, like for example in Davao City, the vice mayor sit as the co-chairperson of the board. And that is actually the recommendation, that was actually the basis of the recommendation of the committee. Now, while all of the PPP contract will have to pass through the Sangguniang Panlungsod by a 2/3 vote, no? Pero nakita natin sa Committee on Finance that at the beginning, even during the board, even in the board, no, the Sangguniang should be represented. That is why the Committee on Finance recommended that as a co-chairperson, the Vice Mayor will sit as a co-chairperson. And the Chairman of the Committee on Finance, as well as the Chairman of the Committee on Commerce, Trade and Industry, will also sit as members of the board. That is our recommendation, and we will make that as an amendment to the ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Any other? If I may add just to the query of Honorable Ugoy, if this is the first time, it's the first time for the city to, probably if ever we're going to PPP, using this code. But the truth of the matter is that it's not the first time for the city to enter into PP. We've been into that already a long time ago. The computerization of this system of the entire city government was a PPP with geodata. So it was successful. It's a kind of build, operate, transfer scheme. So it's just that we don't have this kind of code to follow, but everything there was here. What happened then was here, included here. So it's not first time. And in implementing this PPP, it's always a a dynamic process between the private firm. It depends on what they offer also. So that's why we cannot tell. That's the best method is BOT, build, operate, transfer, or other scheme. It depends on the private sector on what they would like to offer also. And also, the beauty of this is, at the end of the day, it will also pass through us. So, partly, the Sangguniang will be part of the decision maker. And that's a good thing about this code that we're having right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So any other? Since now we go back to the motion, and that is the approval, adoption of this ordinance for final and second, for second and final reading.
Mr. Chair, before the final approval, Mr. Chair, I would like to make an amendment on the title of the ordinance. That instead, the title should be read as follows. An ordinance enacting the private partnership, public-private partnership code of the City of Coronadal in creating the City of Coronadal PPP Board, providing appropriations and incentives therefore, and for other purposes. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection to the amendment? Hearing none, the amendment is hereby approved.
On section 1, Mr. Chair, I move the sentence or the phrase after the bar, Mr. Chairman, so that section 1, short title, this code shall be known and cited as Public-Private Partnership Code of the City of Coronadal, period. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, that section is hereby amended.
And on section 2, letter A, Mr. Chair, I think this is only typographical error, that instead of 1978, that this is actually 1987 Constitution, and we insert as A after the declared, Mr. Chair, so that the first line of letter A, Mr. Chairman, be read as follows. The 1987 Constitution declared as a policy of the state, etc., etc. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, section 2, letter A is amended.
And we go, to, Mr. Chair, to the section 9, Mr. Chair, composition of the City of Coronadal Public-Private Partnership Board. Instead of the city administrator, the co-chairperson shall be changed to the city vice mayor. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, the motion is approved. The co-chairperson would be the city vice mayor.
And another amendment, Mr. Chair, on section 9, the chairman of the Committee on Finance and the chairman of the Committee on Commerce, Trade and Industry shall be inserted as members of the board, Mr. Chair. I so move.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, motion is approved. Inserting the Trade Commerce Committee as members of the board.
And I guess, Mr. Chair, some needs to be corrected on its grammar and what we call this spelling, Mr. Chair. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, on joint sponsorship by the members of the Committee on Finance for the approval of an ordinance adopting the Code of Public-Private Partnership, approach in the financing, construction, operation, and maintenance of local government infrastructure development projects, creating the City of Coronadal PPP Board, providing appropriation and incentives therefore and for other purposes as amended, subject to form and style.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Honorable Gire.
just a consideration. And, 609.
Yes. So we go back again to amendment.
Yes, yes. Number 7 of 609, composition of the City of Coronadal Public-Private Partnership Board be changed to the local finance committee, be changed to chairman of local finance committee.
If I may clarify, Mr. Chair, before any second to the motion of the Honorable Aguirre, the local finance committee is the local finance committee in the executive department. So they have actually a local finance committee. Separate man as a member also, the chairman of the Committee on Finance and Appropriation in the Sangguniang Pangulunsod.
I get Mrs.
So again, Mr. Chair, with that clarification, I hope it clarified the matter. I go back to my motion earlier, Mr. Chair. I move for the approval of the said ordinance, Mr. Chair, as amended and subject to form and style.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, this ordinance is hereby approved on a joint sponsorship and second and final reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Congratulations for this new ordinance of the city.
Item 1.2, an ordinance institutionalizing the Barangay Nutrition Scholars Program of the City of Coronadal.
Let us hear the report, the second reading of this ordinance, proposed ordinance. A 2-minute recess, please.
Mga kanami, recess pa ta subong kay ang aton nga author ara na. Ara na author ta, so let's go back.
At this point, let us hear the second reading of Honorable Annabel Garcia Pingoy.
The primary healthcare approach in the Philippines is a strategy towards health empowerment, emphasizing the need to provide accessible and acceptable health services through the participatory strategies such as health education, training of barangay health workers, and barangay nutrition scholars, community building, and organizing. In this line, Presidential Decree 1569 was enacted to strengthen the Barangay Nutrition Program. It is implemented to address the malnutrition problem that afflicts the vulnerable groups, particularly preschoolers 0 to 59 months, school children 6 to 80 years old, pregnant women and lactating mothers, and other contributory factors that affects the health and nutritional status of the community as a whole. In the light of this approach, Barangay Nutrition Scholars, or commonly known as the BNS, are provided for every barangay. The Barangay Nutrition Scholar Program is a human resource development strategy of the Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition, which involves the recruitment, training, deployment, and supervision of volunteer workers who deliver basic nutrition and related health services and links communities with nutrition and related service agencies and providers. As the BNS is in the forefront insofar as public service is concerned, this ordinance seeks to set forth standards and guidelines designed to guide with the qualifications, training, and honoraria of the Barangay Nutrition Scholars of the City of Coronadal. Mr. Chairman, I move to dispense with the reading of the full text of the ordinance. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Any objection? There having none, motion is approved. The reading of full text is hereby dispensed.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the passage and approval of the ordinance institutionalizing the Barangay Nutrition Scholars Program of the City of Coronadal. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Logoy.
Just a clarification, Mr. Chair, to the proponent. Under Section 3, definition of terms, we have here Barangay Nutrition Scholar. What do you mean by We have here the definition, which says a person engaged in nutrition program and other health-related programs in their respective barangays. What do we mean by other health-related programs in their respective barangay, Mr. Chair? What are these other related?
What is the definition of terms in?
Under number one, because we have here BNS are person engaged in nutrition programs, and you have here other health-related programs. So what do we mean here by other health-related programs that the BNS is part of?
Aside from the weighing of the severely and the underweight children 0 to 59 months old, they are also engaged. They also have they work with regards to the pregnant women, lactating mothers, and they also engage in sa mga overweight nga children 0 to 59 years old, and they're house to house every month. Nag-engage sila sa weighing sa mga severely malnourished children until such time nga maging normal ang weight sa kabataan. And they do also the feeding program. Kaya ginatagaan sila sa mga food coming from the national nga nag-aabot diri sa aton. Kag they have also budget, kung kulang ang budget from the national nga which they receive every quarter, amo nang ginahatag nila sa kabataan nga mga severely nga mga malnourished children.
Mr. Chair, follow up.
Yes, proceed with your follow-up.
We have here the National Nutrition Council. This is national, right, under the national government.
Yes.
And we have City Nutrition Committee. Sino ba yung member ng City Nutrition Committee natin?
We actually, nakapasa sila under Executive Order number 51. We have here, siyempre ang mayor, ang chairman. Ang vice chairman is City Health Office. And members, ako siyempre sa health. And I think I have here, Mr. Chair, for a while. I have here an EO 51. Para sa membership ng ating nutrition, City Agricultural Office, CSWDO, the CLGOO, City Accounting Office, the CTO, City Cooperative Office, CPDO, and the CIO. And the Vice Chair, Mr. Chair, correct me from my previous, the Vice Chair is the Committee Chair of Health and Sanitation, and the alternate Chair is the City PAPCOM.
Mr. Chair, last na lang, Mr. Chair, another question.
Yes,
We
proceed.
have here, Mr. Chair, qualifications for the BNS. And letter C, we have here, it says here, willing to serve the barangay part-time or full-time. Pwede ang part-time, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Pwede na siya, this is volunteerism.
Volunteerism.
Yes. So,
For
pwede siyang part-time or full-time, pero ang iyang is 1 year. Ang appointment siya is good for 1 year, unless may nagsalak siya siguro nga for dishonesty, moral turpitude, mga amo sinabi.
So, ginamit siya nga 1 year gali. This is
annually.
This is the appointment.
Yes, the appointment.
Kasi daw di maintindihan, willing to serve the barangay part-time or full-time with at least a 1 year appointment by the barangay captain siguro. Kulang ba
No. Just wait, may damo ako amendments later. So, if you want to make an amendment, siguro we can make after.
Kasi daw medyo blurry siya dali. Another, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up of this question, Mr. Chair, last. We have here, the mention kasi dito is, under Section 5 recruitment, the BNS shall be recruited from within the barangay. It shall be tested for their mental and physical fitness and proper work attitude. The punong barangay shall recommend qualified applicants to be duly recommended what is the basis or are there any criteria for the punong barangay to recommend to make sure that indeed this PNS is mentally and physically fitness, or sa iya na lang yung may anak na criteria, discretionary
Yeah.
lang siya.
They have the criteria, but of course, kung sa barangay niya, he knows or she knows all siguro tanan niya mga personnel in mga tao sa iyang barangay. So more or less, he can decide whichever siguro. Kung may mga criteria kita, may qualifications kita sa aton nga pagkuha sa mga PNS. So siguro first, siguro arak siya dapat sa barangay niya. Second, siguro maka-read and write, siguro very basic man na siya. Siguro ang ano man is mentally fit and can perform all the duties. Tapos may anak kita more than 18 years old. And 18 years old but not more than 65 years old. Must be at least computer literate. Why at least? Why computer literate? Because when they submit their reports monthly, they have to do it sa computer na. No, so kung mag-hire kita nga sa subong nga panang, we have to go with the times also. So kung mag-hire kita nga hindi malanggit kabalo sa maski paano mag-computer, daw mabudlayan sila sa reporting nila every month.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Chair.
Mr. Chair,
We'll proceed with your last question, Honorable Goy.
kasi it made mention here dito sa compensatory benefits, pwede palang maging civil service.
Yes, that is
Ano?
one of their benefits sa civil na second sub-level 2, I think it's 2.
Pero dapat naka-detach siya sa national.
Yes, they have to also to submit all the requirements to the national.
Do we have
At
years?
least may 2 years ka nga continuous na service, eligible ka na for second sa proof nga sa civil service.
Meron na ba tayo dito sa
I
Coronadal?
think we have.
Na may civil
I
service
think
na
we
sila
have
na may-
already, yes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2.
We have 3,000 here. This is apart from barangay given.
Yes.
Dito sa barangay
Sa
division
ato lang
Karan.
for
Sa
Coronadal
city.
only.
So kung nagabigay ang barangay and then naghatangin
Yes.
dito, dako-dako siya.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chairman.
it's already, I'm through already, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Honorable President.
Mr. Chair, may I clarify, Mr. Chairman, because sa Section 7, Mr. Chair, compensation benefits, newly appointed 3,000. Can we specify this is per quarter or per month?
This is per month. Because the common practice now is pag 3,000, pag no, this is sa city, hindi ni sa barangay,
So
sa
per-
city.
so per
This is per month. Because we do this 3,000, so ang tanan nga bagong BNS nga mag-apply will start from 3,000. Ang practice abi now is pagkatapos ng isa ka BNS, kaguslan sang bagong nga BNS, nag-start siya dito sa end sang ginlas nga na-receive, sang nag-resign na nga
Halimbawa,
BNS.
6,000 na rin.
Kung 6,000 na, 6,000 na siya dayon. So unfair sa iban nga dugay na nga ang gina-receive is lubog paghihapon. So that is why this is the ordinance para ma-standardize naton ang mga honoraryo, mga ginahatag naton sa BNS.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up.
You proceed with your
Maximum
follow-up
amount
question.
of allowance shall be 6,000 unless amended by the Sangguniang Panglungsod. This is in Section 7 pa rin. 6,000 unless amended by the Sangguniang Panglungsod. Monthly, this is a monthly allowance.
Yes, ang ma-receive sang isa ka BNS, maximum of 6,000 pesos only. That is monthly.
Monthly.
Yes, regardless kung dugay na siya, kag na-reach siya na ang 6,000, ang maximum ceiling naton is only 6,000.
Okay.
Pero that is for city alone. Lain ang gina-receive nila sa barangay. So kung maghatag ka mo 10,000 sa barangay, wala nga labot ang city dara. Kaya kung damo ka mo kwarta ang barangay, you can give as much as you want.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Another one, last. This is what we call this allowance or honorarium. What is the right term of that? Honorarium?
Yes, I'm asking that actually from the very beginning. Ano gid ba?
Actually, in the barangay, the practice is honorarium.
Yes, even in the city, I asked even sa Dalong, sa BNS sa office nila, sa payroll nila, they call it honorarium. So honorarium ang gingamit ko, kaya pangayo ko na siya.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable President. Honorable Ogweb, sorry.
Section 11, Mr. Chair, appropriation. It made mention new expenses to be incurred in connection with the implementation of the ordinance shall be taken from the annual budget of the City Nutrition Office. May budget ba tayo para dito for next year?
Actually, nag-mention about this ang Sinaw, nga OIC City ang Sinaw, Ma'am Nancy Adeline, nga actually kulang din ang budget nila for next year. But we can have that siguro sa atong mga supplemental budgets.
Mr. Chair, pinakabilog ang ato nga
BNS, we have 57, 47 ang paid sa city, 10 ang aras sa nga wala na under sa city, nga barangay ang nag-shoulder.
So, ang
Aside from the
47,
city paid, may 10 pagit ang additional ang iban nga barangays nga sa ilan.
so all in all, we have 57. So if you have 57 and paid ang 47 sa city,
47 lang ang paid sa city.
how much are they paid?
47, iba-iba kasi ang rate nila.
Pero do we have the minimum of 3,000 hindi? Maliit pa dyan.
No. Because, actually, yes, almost nga city paid, isang BNS, they are already receiving 6,000. Ang pinakagamay is 4,000.
In case the ordinance will be approved, this is on top of the, let's say they are receiving now 6,000 or?
No. Maximum is only 6,000.
So this is, let's say we have 3,000 and this is not on top. Sa parig ito or yun ang gina-receive nila ngayon?
Yung 3,000, if they start year 1, they start it at 3,000. The next year, additional 1,000 until they reach the 6,000. So mag-stop na kita sa 6,000.
But they are already receiving, only that hindi pa siya na ano.
Yeah, for now they are already receiving. Ang pinakanubo gani nga nag-receive is 4,000 pesos. 4,000.
Let's say kung ma-approve siya yung bill, madugang ng 3,000 hindi yapon.
Ay, hindi.
Hindi na.
No. Up to 6,000 na.
So taran-taran sila mag 6,000.
Yes.
After the
For mas 10 years, 20 years na sila in service. No, ang maximum nga mahal.
this will be a new right granted to them because however it shall not exceed 6,000.
Yes. Actually, wala naman may nag-exceed pa sa 6,000. So, dara naton gin based ang aton nga ordinance. From what they are receiving now, maximum is 6,000. So, kung mag-start na naman ng bago nga BNS, they have to start at 3,000.
If they are nationally appointed as yung sa civil service na appoint na sila parang may parang permanent ba na position, how much are they receiving?
Maybe they can start as there is a city, mag-apply sila for any position. So that's the time siguro nga ma-increase ang ila whatever kung pila minimum wage nila. Taas sila. Pero para lang na naging BNS sila sa ilang barangay, ang maximum ceiling is only 6,000.
No, what I'm asking, Mr. Chair, is yung, di ba sabi mo kanina, meron tayong
Yes,
permanent na mga sa national na BNS na under na sa civil service.
Yes.
Do they receive something from the national apart from
No.
6,000
Not yet.
So yung ano lang nila,
Unless they apply.
yung ano lang nila, yung benefit lang nila is yung mga
Sa ila siguro qualification.
mga traveling allowance.
Yes. Even ang traveling allowance nila is 1,200 from the national. That is 100 pesos a month sa traveling allowance nila which they receive unless ang city maghatag every time they travel and the barangay can also give.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Honorable President.
aside meron silang honorarium sa barangay and sa city. Sa province ba meron, Mr. Chair?
I think may sa province pero very minimal, 200 pesos, 300. I think 300 pesos. Yearly, yes. It's a quarter. I think BHW is receiving 300 quarterly.
See, for example, Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up. If kung wala talaga tayong ma-hire na BNS, kasi sa qualification is at least computer literate. See for example, ang mga ang mga barangay natin wala gid ma-hire
When
na
we,
computer literate, okay lang.
siguro when we say at least, do may gamay lang nga naman man sa computer. No, not really na computer literate gid siya, at least man lang. So, dapat mag-learn siya, kaya gina-evaluate na siya every after end of the year. Kung inang iya nga mga target, may mga target abi sila given by the SINAW, nga dapat subong nga month mo ng target mo, ma-comply ka. Otherwise, ang imong nakasalalay dira, ang imo mo naman for the next year, kaya gina-evaluate ikaw. So kung hindi ka lang gid kabalo mag-computer, patudlo, di ba? Just like us.
Thank you, Mr. Clay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Bascon.
Mr. Chair, as a member of this committee, I would like to be clarified. The BNS, she's receiving like 3,000. How much additional benefits she's receiving from barangay? Do you have idea what is the computation or basis of every barangay?
I don't have idea sa mga barangay. Kaya depends na sa ira nila. As long as they have money to give sa ilang nga barangay, dako man ang ila ginahatag, no? Kung gamay ang barangay mo, kay gamay ang ira mo, gamay man ang ginahatag mo. Actually, I have here how much BNS are receiving per barangay. So, siyempre ang GPS has the highest, no? So, kung we say GPS, they are on top, they're receiving 5,830. That's how big. Pero kung dala ka naman sa gamay, like Mabini, 1.6 lang.
Okay.
Lang na, no?
So, if we will approve
ang
this ordinance,
Esperanza even, 800 sa barangay ina.
yeah.
Pero kung i-approve ini the
Ordinance, additional 3,000. Guaranteed sila sa 3,000.
No, kung they start
Ah.
as new BNS. Pero sa subong, mag-receive na sila 5,000 from us.
Okay, ma'am.
They're receiving already 5,000 on top sa gina-receive sa barangay.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Like Zone 3. Zone 3 Zone 3, 3,000. Ano? Zone 3, monthly or Zone 3, 4,000. Plus 4,000, plus 6,000, 10,000. So, ang GPS yan is about 12,000. No wonder nga wala gid may nag-retire. Maskin tigulang na.
As long as they're able.
As long as
They're able.
that is why this is the purpose of this ordinance. Na dapat ma-set kita sa standard naton. Nga kung dayan na gid sila, like sa age nila, kinaga very taxing na, physically taxing na on their part, mag-house to house, nag-set kita sa age limit. Retirement is 65, pero nag-extend kami another 3 years.
60 doon.
Oh, gabi ka naman.
Any other? The chair would like to be clarified on the recruitment. Because my fear is that the question is how can we protect them, because after elections they are being booted out by some barangay captains. How can we have the continuity of their services even after elections? Because BNS are trained, dedicated, and most especially they know already what's happening with their patients, like children and malnourished children and the mothers. So they have the grasp of the situation. Then it's really bad that sometimes every year they're replaced in the middle of even in the middle of the year, or even after 1 year.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In fact, though, this is really a problem, no? Right after election, nagka-problema kita. But here in this ordinance, Mr. Chair, dapat ang sinaw, ang nutrition officer, and the barangay captain will talk about this, about the continuity of the BNS. Then they have to recommend it to the executive, for the executive to consider also sa mga recommendations sang duwa. Kung hindi magkapirma ang executive, then balik na naman ang BNS to reconsider also sa barangay captain on what to do. Maybe ang last resort is i-appaon sang barangay captain nga sa iya, nga paid under sa iya, and then replace another one.
So yun nga, we will have a scenario wherein we have more BNS in a barangay because some will be paid by the barangay and some will be paid by the city. What if all BNS should be appointed by the barangay chairman, and the mayor or the chief executive would just be noting about the appointment, so that there will be no that the barangay would be given full powers to hire their own BNS as they deemed fitted for the job. Kasi minsan hindi ina-approve ng mayor pero gusto ng barangay chair. So sino ba talaga ang masusunod sa ganang sitwasyon? Si mayor or si BNS? Saan ba talaga ang ano?
I think they have to talk with each other, no? I don't think so we can do anything about it being the executive of the city, kag siya magid ang ginakuhaan naton sang aton siya magid ang signatory for the final. Maybe both the kapitan, barangay captain, or the SINA will talk to each other nga ini siya to prove nga ining BNS is worth nga i-retain siya. Based also sa mga criteria nga i-submit, because we have to evaluate them for the whole year. Gina-evaluate sang sinaw. If the sinaw thinks nga hindi na gid siya worth nga sang work ya as BNS, then hindi siya mag-recommend. But if she thinks nga asset siya sa barangay, then siguro both of them will recommend. I don't think so the mayor will disapprove the appointment if both of them already recommend for that appointment of that SINA, of that BNS.
Mr. Chair.
I'm just thinking if there will be chance that the role of the mayor will just be ministerial. Once the barangay chair appointed one, the mayor, though he is the final signatory of the appointment, but the thing, it will just be ministerial on his part, and it's considered upon the recruitment of the barangay chair. The recruitment is considered as already approved, and the signature of the mayor will just be ministerial. So that would create less problem as to who will be retained and who will be not. Honorable Presca.
Yes, Mr. Chair, in support to the manifestation of the presiding officer. Please be reminded that every year the barangay captain there's an appointment to not only the BNS but then the workers. So I think as manifested by the honorable presiding officer, medyo tama yun na I think the mayor is only ministerial, but then the barangay captain should prevail. Although sinasabi natin as mandated sa ordinance na talaga makakuha sila ng allowance or honorarium dito sa city. But then ang pinaka-crucial kasi dyan, the barangay captain ang nag-hire and nag-appoint. So siguro ang mag-prevail dyan ang barangay captain. Say for example, yung decide ng ating presiding officer na after election. So siguro kung hindi talaga mag-sign ang mayor, hindi niya tanggapin, then be it, no? Kasi okay lang naman sa mga barangay na sila nag-hire yan, so sila ang magpasahod, magbibigay ng allowance. But then later on, kung halimbawa ma-settle, so that's the time siguro na pwede naman i-grant ng city niyan na magkakaroon ng honorarium yung i-hire ng kapitan na sa bago pa lang hindi talaga i-recognize ng mayor. So ang mag-prepare diyan, I think the barangay captain, because the barangay captain appoint that certain BNS, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, let us also take into consideration di nag-start ng appointments ng BNS.
Sa barangay captain, Mr. Chairman.
So, kung kalaban mo mag-BNS, do you recommend it?
Actually, in my case, wala akong
So,
okay lang.
that's
But
it.
then,
Doon mo
yes,
lang manina.
yes,
Basta kita sa, kaya di nag-start ang appointment natin from the barangay. After your election, kung naperde ka because ang BNS mo is sapihan, will you recommend?
Actually,
balik na doon talang. Balik na doon. That's the case always.
yes,
No?
pero actually, in reality, Mr. Chairman, kasi ang nag-hire is the barangay captain. So, siguro, ang barangay captain talaga ang mag-prevail
Yes,
yan.
exactly. That is why in this ordinance, the barangay captain submits his or her recommendation to the SINAW, and the SINAW will recommend, both of them will recommend, based on the criteria, based on sa iya nga mga naubra na qualification and sa mga ginhatag sa iya, and then both of them will recommend that person to the city mayor.
Mr. Chair,
Honorable Praise.
I will just offer my understanding on the proposal. The purpose of the ordinance is to lay down the framework for which we have to appoint DNS to serve in the barangay as well as in the city. Hindi pinaton matula nga ang hierarchy sang official sa barangay, ang head is the barangay captain. We cannot do away with that. That's what is being established by our national laws. And also the head of the city, for which everything actually is being supervised by, is the city mayor. Wala kita may na maagi man na sila tanan, because when it already concerns finances from the city, it will have to pass through the mayor, and it will have actually to undergo his signature also. In the same manner sa barangay, pag una siyang ma-hire o ma-recommend kay mayor, maagigit sa kapitan. Ang purpose ng ordinansa, kaya problema kita sa politika every election. After election, kakambyo, may ma-replace ng mga BNS. Siguro, with this ordinance, makambyo ang perspective. Ang politiko ay natamahimo sila, ara gina sila yan. Ang kambyo naton, ang pananaw sa BNS. Because if that process is in place, maghalong na ang BNS. Hindi na siya interest sa politika. Because what actually put in danger ang posisyon sa BNS because of his decision. No, ka-intrabi siya sa politika. Kung siya nagapabor sa kapitan, pag napirdi sa kapitan niya, pero problema niya again. But if this ordinance will be in place, and this will give actually a prior information sa aton ng mga barangay workers, you just have to do your job as nutrition scholars and health workers and etc. etc. No politics involved, so that whoever wins as barangay captain or city mayor, hindi ka mapektuhan. And this is actually the purpose of this ordinance. Di ta na yung pag-islan si mayor kag si kapitan kayo ito may imo sana. Magiging sila duwa, di ba? Ako lang na yakon niya nga pananaw nga benefit if this ordinance will be drafted or passed, Mr. Chair.
Any other? Through my experience, it's just that my wish is just a wish. Police is a wish that this BNS, the base Ws and all should not be touched whatsoever, no matter what happened with their activities, because at the end of the day, they have a higher purpose in their job that is as defined here. So of course they're just human sometimes. They'll be subjected to subjective analysis of every leader, but at the end of the day, my idea is there must be continuance of their services once they are there already.
unless they will commit a gravest mistake. Pero kung wala malang kung tani, hindi sila yan, hindi na pag-islan up to their retirement. Because they're there, trained, their dedication is unquestionable. Ang wala na ang pinaka nakitaan ko gid nga do alin pa sa una nga tani. Wala man alsas ng bangko, pero during my time, ginaobra ko lang yan. Kung sino approve ni kapitan, why na ko ano ng political leaning na sige lang kung ano ginobra niya sa election. Approve because of that reason. They're doing a higher lofty goals, and that is to maintain the job as defined in this paper. Yun lang ba? Yung tani. Kaya damo ya actuality, damo man nga casualty kung isa. Tapos eleksyon, nadula na itong tanan nila maging training, naglain na ang tao mong posisyon. And the people are used to them. May attachment din na siya. BNS, kag ang tao sa komunidad, karoon na sila attachment. So madula na kung isa ang good communication, madula na itong dating mga practices nga tuara na. Tayo yun na balaw. Wala, that's why I'm looking at this. Kung paano natin tani nga daw ang kapitan, ang masunod, whoever is appointing, then it would be just ministerial tani sa pag-abot sa parts ng mayor. Kumbaga, the higher respect of to the kapitan will be given pag-abot sa appointments ng BNS, as well as daycare, as well as BHW. It's just a sentiment after all. So then, it will be the decision of the body. Okay, so thank you for that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
Just thinking out loud ang question, Mr. Chair. Do we have LGUs na kaya nasabi mo kanina na parang ministerial na na-acquired ng mayor at kapitan, na may model ba tayo sa ibang LGUs na pag na-in place na dyan and they have an BNS who are already experiencing, hindi na sila pwede matanggal? Because I believe other LGUs are also experiencing the same problem. I think this is also a problem na national level. Sa countrywide man siguro ang problema na. Has there been any measures or curative measure made by the national government to erase this parang patronage na parang kung ano yung political leaning mo, kung mapuhin ka? Baka meron tayong makita sa ibang model na LGU na ordinance with regards to this.
Mr. Chair, if I may...
Yes, Honorable Labris.
Just only my opinion, Mr. Chair. The only problem with our government is what is only protected by law are those employees covered by civil service. All the other employees working in the government really is at the mercy of the executive. That's the reality.
Mr. Chair.
That's the problem.
Just an addendum to what Councilor Arbis has said. It made mention, di ba, parang may civil service sila doon na, di ba? Parang pwede ka mag-apply sa national. Yung ba nag-apply na sa national and eventually not being taken, kumbaga kinuha siya sa listahan ng BNS, di ba pwede siya maka-protest noon? Kasi di ba, meron dyan na accredited na kumbaga sa civil service. Like for example, in that case, paano yan? Nag-receive siya sa national. And eventually, may na siya doon. Hindi ba yun? What if kung ganyan na method ang gawin nila? Nang sila sa civil service?
So far, ang civil service, no, I think we only have one. Then, ang sa kanya is siguro the fact na naging eligible siya for second support. No, sa iya siguro daw another siguro nga cap on her head lang nga may ara siya nga ginauyatan. After all, wala man siya nag-demand nga ma-employ siya, nga nag-apply siya sa iba niya sa government because ang sa dole ang gina-receive is minimum pila ang gina-receive sa JO naton compared sa gina-receive nila with barangay and the city. It's more than. So, hindi na lang siya mag-apply. kita ga-receive ang minimum naton is 341. Multiply it 22, something like 7,000 plus lang. Ang BLS naton, more than that ang gina-receive.
Mr. Chair, kasi dito kasi sa ordinance, it made mention here of it made mention here of yung sa compensatory na parang they will apply for waive.
The civil service. No, Mr. Chair, with regards to that, that is actually a benefit only provided to, yes, benefit provided to BHW, BNS, elected barangay officials, and other sectors mentioned by the civil service, which they feel that they no longer needed to get an examination for eligibility because of their experience working in the government. However, in the BNS and BHW, they are only qualified for the second grade, second level eligibility. Kung sa aton pa sa proof lang sila. But the other mentioned official, Mr. Jesse, for example, elected officials, barangay officials, we are qualified actually for first level eligibility or professional eligibility. Kaya kahit hindi tayo nakapag-aral, pag may chance mag-apply tayo sa government, we can be eligible to apply for any position in the government.
Okay.
Ang elected, hindi second.
No, we are first level eligible. Ang second level lang is ang BNS and BHW.
Okay, having discussed this thoroughly, we should, I think, go back to the motion.
Before the final motion, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move for some amendments.
Okay, to proceed with your amendments.
In the explanatory note, I move to substitute 071 months with 059 months. I so move, Mr. Chair.
59, 51.
And 0 to 59.
59. Any objection? You're having none? Amendment is approved.
In section 2, I move to delete letter D in the objectives covered in this ordinance because they have already the existing BNS association. So delete all the section 2. Kaya may existing na kita. Section 2, delete. Letter D, I mean, the letter D. In the objective, section.
Any second to the motion? Any objection to having none? Motion is approved. Deleting section D of, provision D, letter D, under section 2.
In section 3, under definition of terms, number 4, I move to insert the words based on EO 51 series of 2019. So it would now read as follows. City Nutrition Committee, the CNC, a committee created based on EO 51 series of 2019, composed of different sectors responsible to plan and develop strategies, monitors, and evaluates the nutrition program implementation in the city. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion is approved.
Yes. Number 5, Barangay Nutrition Action Plan, the PNAP, the local version of the Philippine Plan of Action, the country's directional framework for nutrition improvement, the Barangay Nutrition Scholar being a spearhead the BNAP implementation. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, motion is approved.
In section 4, qualifications, in letter F, I move to delete the entire sentence and substitute with at least 18 years of age. The optional age of separation is at 60 years old or more, but not beyond 65 years old, which is the mandatory of separation. Furthermore, Those who have reached the age of 65 can extend their period of appointment to up to 3 years before retirement, subject to performance evaluation by the SINAW and the barangay. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, motion is approved.
In letter H, I move to substitute the 10-day didactic training to only 3-day orientation, as well as the 20-day practicum to 10-day practicum. Instead of 20, 10 na lang. Kaya mo ning usual gina-practice nila.
Any second to the motion?
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
Section 5, the recruitment. I move to delete the number 1 and substitute with the BNS shall be recruited from within the barangay and shall be tested for their mental and physical fitness and proper work attitude. The punong barangay shall recommend qualified applicants to be duly recommended by the City Nutrition Action Officer, the SINAW. After review, and if found qualified, the City Nutrition Action Officer, the SINAW, submits the recommendation links for approval and appointment by the City Mayor. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, motion amendment is approved.
Section 6, number 1. I move to substitute 0 to 24 months to 0 to 23 months, and 24 to 71 months to 24 to 59 months. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, amendment is approved.
Yes, another bullet to be inserted after the number 1 is monthly weighing as follow-up to the identified underweight and severely underweight children. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Monthly weighing.
Yes. There's a follow-up, Mr. Chair, so that more or less.
That's us still under number 1.
Yes, section, yeah. Another bullet lang. Separate lang, Mr. Chair.
Okay, monthly weighing
Yes.
from 0 to 59.
Ang underweight and severely underweight lang.
Okay.
0 to
Monthly
59
weighing.
months.
Oh. In objection? Having none, amendment is hereby approved.
So in number 6, I move to delete the second paragraph. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Second paragraph, deleted.
Section
Number 6.
number 6.
Yes. The second paragraph is deleted. Second paragraph ng number 6.
Instead, what is your amendment?
No. Din separate ko, Mr. Chair. Under next,
Okay.
number 7.
Okay. Please read the amendment.
Together with the Barangay Nutrition Committee, the BNS assist in formulating a BNS action plan as a guide in managing her or his different tasks to support implementation of the Barangay Nutrition Action Plan. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Let me be clarified. So you inserted Barangay Health Committee?
Yes, they have the committee, Mr. Chair, which under the EOO 51 that
Okay.
passes already sa SB. Na
And the
na-approve
rest
na.
of the statement is followed, like to document accomplishment in your amendment?
Together with the Barangay Nutrition, that BNS assist in formulating a BNS action plan as a guide in managing
As a guide.
as a guide in his different tasks to support implementation of the Barangay Nutrition Action Plan. I so move, Mr. Chair.
So you already delete this monthly accomplishment, keep track daily activities?
We have
Diary.
here another bullet, Mr. Chair.
Another bullet,
Yes.
Okay.
Para
That will be
ma-klaro,
number
Mr.
8.
Yes, para klaro, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's go back to numbers 7. Section 7, new section 7. Any objection to that? Having none, amendment is approved. Next amendment.
Yes, number 8, to read, to document her accomplishment as a BNS, he or she prepares a record of monthly accomplishments in relation to the targets in the BNS action plan. The BNS also keeps track of his or her daily activities through a diary. The diary lists the BNS activities for the day, observations, and insights as part of her or his on-the-job training and continuing education as BNS. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
Section 7.
Section 7.
Letter.
I move to substitute the word compensation to honorarium. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
Under the provisions in Section 7, I move to delete and substitute it with the following. 1. Monthly honorarium. A barangay nutrition scholar receives an honorarium in the following scheme. Newly appointed, 3,000 per month. Annual increase of 1,000 until the maximum amount of 6,000 is reached, unless amended by the Sangguniang Tanungsod.
Any second to the motion?
Second.
Any objection?
May continuation pa, Mr. Chair.
Tama ba pa? Napundo ka. You continue reading also.
The increase is for those BNS who perform satisfactorily as recommended by the punong barangay and the SINA to the city mayor. However, the barangay shall extend their counterpart to the honorarium depending on the internal revenue allotment, the era of their respective barangays. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
Number 2, Barangay Nutrition Scholar Eligibility, the BNSE. After completing 2 consecutive years of satisfactory service, the BNS can avail of a first-level eligibility by filing the proper application with Regional Office of the Civil Service Commission. This gives the BNS a chance to become a full-fledged civil servant should the BNS qualify for a vacant position in the local government. Detailed requirements appear in the Civil Service Commission website. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, motion is approved.
3, the NNC, the National Nutrition Council, eligibility. To apply for the NNC, the National Nutrition Council for eligibility, the BNS requests a certification from the NNC attesting inclusion of the BNS name in the NNC's database. Requirements for issuance of this authentication include A. Original endorsement letter from the local chief executive. B. Original endorsement letter from the NNC regional office. C. Photocopy of designation appointment paper signed by the punong barangay nutrition action officer. D. Photocopy of BNS master list with name and details of BNS per service from the LGU. E. Photocopy of BNS ID card or government issued ID card. F. At least 1 copy of certificate of attendance participation from any relevant training. Once the authentication from BNS is granted, this is submitted to the CSC together with other eligibility requirements of CSC. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
4, the National Outstanding BNS or NOBNS. If the BNS does his or her work well, he could be chosen as an outstanding BNS in the community, city, province, or region. They may even be chosen as the National Outstanding BNS. The NOBNS is recognized annually during the National Nutrition Awarding Ceremony. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is hereby approved.
5, traveling allowance. A BNS received a modest monthly traveling allowance from the NNC in Manila amounting to 1,200 per year and from the city or barangay governments. The amount of the allowance varies depending on the financial capability of the LGUs. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
6, loyalty incentive. The BNS are also qualified to avail of the city KORONADAL's loyalty incentive based on Ordinance Number 21, Series of 2019, known as Volunteer Workers Loyalty Incentive. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
7, clothing and work paraphernalia. Annually, the LGU will provide all BNS materials and equipment pertaining and carrying out his or her function, including but not limited to the following: uniform, polo shirt, umbrella. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Amendment is approved.
8. Death benefits. Upon the death of a qualified and active BNS, his or her primary beneficiary are entitled to receive a death benefit of not less than 5,000 pesos. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
Section 8. I move to delete letter C. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, motion is approved, deleting section 8, letter C.
Letter C. In 9, I move to delete section 9, termination, because this is already explained in the provisions in section 8. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
The termination deleted. So,
Any objection? Being none, having none, the amendment is hereby approved.
Section 13, I move to delete the word guidelines and substitute it with the word ordinance. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Honorable President.
just a clarification, Mr. Chair. This, the midwife is, may ano ba, karapatan bang midwife na isa siya na mag-recommend for para sa ng BNS natin? Because in section 10, vacancy. In case of termination, a member of the BNS, the city may, upon deliberation and commendation by the City Nutrition Committee and endorsement of the punong barangay and the midwife in charge. Included ba ang midwife natin na mag-recommend?
No.
Deleted.
Deleted na
Deleted
gani.
na, no? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go back to the amendment.
Yes, section 13, again, I move to delete the word guidelines and substitute it with the word ordinance. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Any objection? Having none, amendment is approved.
That's all for the amendments, Mr. Chair.
So let's go back.
And
Yes.
before Mr. Chair, for my final amendments, I move to add for my co-sponsorship, Councilor Gascon, Councilor Ugoy, Councilor Abi, and maybe all the members of the Circus Body as co-sponsors for this, co-authors for this ordinance, Mr. Chair, including the Vice Mayor for this ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Unanimous.
Any objection? Having none, any second to the motion?
Second.
Any objection? Having none, motion is approved as to the authorship. And now we go back to the final
Yes, Mr. Chair.
motion.
I would like to retain again my motion. I move for the passage and approval of the ordinance institutionalizing the Barangay Nutrition Scholars Program of the City of Coronadal on second and final reading as amended, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any objection? Having none, the ordinance institutionalizing the Barangay Nutrition Scholar Program of the City of Coronadal is hereby approved. On a second and final reading on unanimous sponsorship. Congratulations, Honorable Bingoy, for this new ordinance of the city.
Under the unassigned business, item 2.1, resolution authorizing the closure of 11 dormant accounts of the City of Coronadal between the Land Bank of the Philippines, Coronadal branch, and transferring the balance thereof to current account has of the city with LBP Coronadal branch.
Let us hear the second reading of that item on the dormant accounts. Let us hear the second reading of Honorable Edwin Abris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of this August body, good afternoon to everyone. And on joint sponsorship by the members of the Committee on Finance, Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of a resolution authorizing the closure of 11 dormant accounts of the City of Coronadal maintained with Land Bank of the Philippines, Coronadal Branch, and transferring the balance thereof to the current account trust fund of the City with Land Bank of the Philippines, Coronadal Branch. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second. The chair would like to be clarified on that item H.
Yes.
Of the 11 dormant accounts under item H, the LBPPCF, it's a huge amount of 7 million.
Yes.
So let us be appraised of what is all that fund all about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to that question, actually we have invited our city treasurer as well as the city accountant to appear before the committee last Wednesday, last week, to also ask information with regards to the 11 accounts that are being requested to be closed, and the balances will be transferred to the current trust account of the city. Now, the other accounts, Mr. Chairman, are actually being dormant for quite some time because the projects, the ARCP projects are actually implemented way before, that is even actually a decade before. And those projects are already been completed. Now, with regards to letter H, this trust fund, LBP-PCF, or the Performance Challenge Fund. This is actually the Performance Challenge Fund trust account, in which this is actually where the funds coming from the national government, whenever the city actually receives some commendation and recognition. If we could recall previously, the city government was also a recipient of the 25 million from Vice President Robredo. And this is actually where the fund actually go to. And the city government also put up an equity of 25 million. And it also goes to the PCF. Now, the 7 million is also from another commendation or recognition received by the city previously, supposedly for a certain project, but that project was already implemented. The only problem is the funds that was used for the implementation of that project was taken from a separate trust fund. And this is actually, this remaining balance supposedly should have been used for that project. But unfortunately, nung daw nagmali daw sa pagbangga ang aton accounting office kung sa diin kwaon ang pondo. But when this fund will be transferred to a current trust fund, this will be actually a replenishment of the said trust fund, Mr. Chair. But all of this money are still existing, and they are, this will be placed under the current trust account of the city with Land Bank of the Philippines, and this can only be used subject to reappropriation by the Sangguniang Panlungsod.
Okay, thank you for that very thorough explanation, Salamat. So we go back to the motion. Are there any objection? Having none, the resolution authorizing the closure of 11 dormant accounts of the City of Coronadal maintained with Land Bank of the Philippines, Coronadal Branch, and transferring the balance thereof to the current account trust fund of the City with Land Bank of the Philippines, Coronadal Branch is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Congratulations.
Item 2.2, resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign the memorandum of agreement with the National Library of the Philippines for the advancement of the city library.
Let us hear the second reading of Honorable Richie Luella Ogoy.
Again, Mr. Chair, this is the second reading of a committee report from the Committee on Human Rights, Justice, and Legal Matters pertaining to a request for a resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign a memorandum of agreement with national. Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of a resolution authorizing the city mayor to enter into and sign memorandum of agreement with National Library of the Philippines for the advancement of city library. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second. Any objection? There having none, the motion is hereby approved, and that is the entering of agreement between the City of Coronadal and the National Library of the Philippines
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
on joint sponsorship.
There being no other matters, Mr. Chair, I move for the adjournment.
Second.
Any objection? There having none, our session is hereby adjourned. Thank you so much for your precious time for the output of today's session. Salamat, 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 salamat. Congratulations to all, especially to the authors of the new ordinances filed, created, and approved today, and to the author also of several resolutions. Congratulations. So, ang Genio, ara na? Ara pa sa baba. You'll wait for the Genio. While waiting for the Genio, any other matters to be discussed as a group,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
as a body? Yes, Honorable Abris.
Again, I'm inviting everyone for the continuation of budget reading tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning, session hall. And again, Thursday, 9 o'clock also. And on Friday, 9 o'clock until afternoon.
Thank you for that information.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Honorable Aguirre.
this is only an observation. Pwede ba ma-install ang sa mga speakers ang ating mic na para magsalita ang mga invited guests. Marinig ba natin?
May mga microphone. Ang tanan nga mga invited guests.
Yes.
So we'll just have to use remote controlled microphone tomorrow. Okay. So since we're having the session, the meeting tomorrow here, it will be difficult. Okay, so we're just gonna use extra microphone. Okay. All right. Oh, sure. Okay. So mga kanami, so mga kanami, ay sa wakas. Medyo mahaba-haba rin ang usapan. Pero ang pinaka-importante, no? Today, 2 ordinances were approved. Ako nga bagay ini siya. Na pinagid ang PPP na ginatawagan ni Code of the City. Ay kinahanglan na siya para nga ang mga investor makadto diri sa aton. No, and that's the start of the ball. Kumbaga, that will be the start of the ball rolling. So amo ni karon ang method nagkaroon na ng sistema nga bago ang investor makasulod dapat may code ang aton nga syudad. So morning nami kay other improvements of the city can be now done not only by government funding but by private funding. So morning nami ni halimbawa panamion nato ng aton nga public market nga daw mall. Then we can invite SM, we can invite Pure Gold, we can invite other investors nga mag partnership sa city. Amo na siya kanami kung may code kita. Ngini nga code
budlay ni Ibrahon sa tuntod lang. Nung dugay na na ginumpisahan, yung pat-pat. Pero hindi mo na sa kadali, kay tungod, ibagay taman sa aton nga syudad nga hindi kita mabitin. And ikaduha nga ordinansa, amo ang aton nga Barangay Nutrition Scholar Program, institutionalized. Ay, by the way, ang author gali sa aton nga PPP, amo si Honorable Edwin Abris. Dili naman sa ordinance institutionalizing Barangay Nutrition Scholars, ang author naman atong daraya si Honorable Annabel Pingoy. No? So, ang namin naman siniya, ang mga nutrition scholars ta. No, do may ara na sa natawag balang standard na gid mosunod. No, hindi tong lain nga barangay, lain nila gina-implement, iban nga barangay imo na iban to. So standard na program as to recruitment pati ilang as compensation or honorarium, no, alos magiging uniform na kay ti damo man nga barangay nga iba-iba, no, pero karon niya sa city klaro na ang mabaton. So I hope no nga ma-stabilize na gid ang ilang sitwasyon. Ang pinaka-importante dira ang ilang paghatag sang ilang trabaho, standardized na gid siya. Ang muna kanami kung may ara sa ordinansa. Karon man nga hapon napasar man naton ang aton paghatag naman sa agreement sa National Library. So that ang aton National Library ang muna ginang part and parcel sa aton man nga library diri. So magkontrata na kita, may contract kita with National Library. No, ang namin dati dugangan nato ni na pondo para magnami pagid ang aton nga library sa city. Okay? Then atong isa naton nga resolution nga na-approvean subong amo ang atong mga kwarta nga tulog na sadto, no, para magamit ibalhin naton sa current account. So mga amo na nga bagay ginaagi pa na sa resolution. So karon nga pon amo na ang aton na-achieve. Okay? So mga kanami, salamat sa inyong paglantaw. Sa liwat, ang katawhan nga nagaugyon, ano man ang plano kagando, madali laboton. Kanami, Koronadal, God bless us all. Salamat. Makalimutan ang sila kon nga mga pwede nila nambal. Wala mang problema sa akon kung magbarong. Amo ring aton nga mga councilors after login kapoy gid sila, oh. Oh, tay merinda anay gamay, no? May ara man preparar. Amo nami kung may mga pasado nga mga authorship, no, amo ning amon nga ano. Kung may makaobra ka bi ordinansa daw nagapalibre ka. So amo ning amon nga amo ning reward. Yan. Ari pagit, ha? Sino ang nagpadala sini? Yan, alright. Reward, oo. Ako naman, kay mali ang akong uniform. Kada first session of the week, dapat ang uniform gali, barong. Balaan ko man na, galing tibaw. Sa sobra ka busy, nalipatan. Nagsulod ko diyan, naka-Amerikana. Sila nakabarong. So, anong libre na lang ako sa ila. Nantawa, nakabarong sila, oh. So, ako ya wala. So, amo ni karon ang libre ko naman sa ila. Suhol. Joke lang. Wala man di penalty. Okay? So, mga kanami, malisensya na ko. Sa sunod naman nga Martes, see you diri sa session hall para sa aton nga Tuesday session sangguniang panglungsod ng City of Coronadal. Bye-bye!